Certainly it is an honor to be here with all of you today. This is my third time, I believe, to speak in front of your group. The first time I spoke was concerning the Lake Erie Arboretum. The second time I spoke was when I had entered the political arena, and now here I am on my 1-year anniversary today of being sworn in as your member of Congress. It was January 6th of last year, probably right about this same time in the afternoon, that I stood on the House floor with tears welling in my eyes and butterflies in my stomach as I raised my hand and took the oath of office to defend the Constitution and to represent the people of the 3rd District of Pennsylvania. It was obviously a wonderful day for me. Many family and friends came down to join me in that celebration. And it was the beginning of probably the most fascinating, I'm sure, the most fascinating year of my life. If there is an emotion that can be experienced, I've experienced it this year. It has been the ups and the downs, the challenges and the excitement, and the day-to-day work that has just made this a tremendous experience. And first of all, thank you. Thank you for allowing me, for trusting in me enough to send me to Washington to represent you. But it's always best to be back here in Erie, in my home, in the 3rd District. This is the people I love, the community I love, the area I love. This is the reason why I ran for Congress, is truly because I care so much about this region, about the people, and I care so much about our country. Today, I'd take this opportunity just to talk a little bit about the past year. With so many challenges, not only in 2009, but even prior to that, over the past decade, there was many issues that hit us after those few moments of excitement as we took the oath of office. It was right into work. There was no lag period. They've told me, I only know this Congress that we're right now, but members who've been there for a while told me in the past, you get sworn in and then you go home for a few weeks and come back after the president was either sworn in or did their State of the Union, and it really wasn't much work. Well, that didn't happen when I was there last year in January, and that hasn't happened the entire year. It's been one issue after the other. But when I took office just a year ago today, our economy was truly on the brink of collapse. And I think if you think back to your thoughts and your feelings and your concerns back then, you know what I'm talking about. Retirement savings were lost for many people, or certainly much diminished. Credit, very difficult to find at an unsustainable rate. Friends and neighbors losing their homes and losing their jobs at an alarming pace. And this was really the culmination of a decade that was fraught with turmoil, and one that brought us the smallest job growth for American workers in the history of keeping any of these records. Recently, the Washington Post called the 2000s the lost decade of the U.S. economy. And here we are at 2010, a new decade, so not just looking back a year, but people are looking back the decade. There was zero net job creation in the last decade, compared to net job growth rate of 20% or higher for every decade since the 1940s. 0% last year. Median income fell by 4% in the last decade. The first time that we have seen this drop since figures have been tracked beginning in the 1960s. So as I said, those of us who were sworn in last January 6th, were given an enormous responsibility to turn our economy around and to take our country down a securer path. So there was a choice in front of us last January: to take action to prevent an economic collapse or to allow another Great Depression. And I don't say that to be dramatic. Economists across the spectrum agreed we either had to put resources into the economy or let it fall. And we chose to take swift action. And I don't believe a moment too soon. So one of the hardest votes I first took was the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, commonly referred to as the Economic Stimulus Package. But I think thanks to this bold legislation, we prevented another economic meltdown and are now really on the path to stability and hopefully on the path to growth. Our economy is showing signs of improvement. Our GDP is slowly moving in the right direction. Businesses are starting to increase their workers' hours, and some are even going out and hiring. The stock market has rebounded some, and there's also small signs in the manufacturing economy, which I think is very hopeful. The increase There's an increase in manufacturing for the 5th month in a row to a level that has not been seen since April '06. And to me, that's one of the best signs going forward, is to see that manufacturing is improving. Our economy is stronger when we base it on building things, not just on paper, creating tangible products as opposed to trading of investments and stocks. So that to me is a very important sign going forward. And we're still looking for all of those green shoots, and we're seeing them, and I think we need to make sure that we continue to see more of those, obviously, and keep our eye out for where the economy is going forward. The Recovery Act has also produced jobs and opportunities right here at home. In Erie County, we have received more than $60 million in grants alone. These funds amount to direct investments into our community to bring relief to businesses, to families, and to our local governments. For example, the City of Erie Police Department was able to hire 6 new officers, and the City of Erie School District was awarded more than $6 million, which prevented layoffs of teachers and other support personnel. These funds also helped at-risk students and provide lunches for those students who would otherwise go through the day hungry. GCAC was awarded a grant of more than $82,000 for a program to help improve employment for senior citizens, many of whom have seen their life savings disappear. This is just a sampling of the hundreds of jobs and programs that we're able to inject into our region thanks to the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. But only a third of these funds have been spent so far. The remaining dollars should be distributed this year, providing further assistance to our region. With the infrastructure in place to pave the road to recovery, we took further action to protect businesses and banks in our region from the abuses and greed, and I say that word loudly, greed, that happened on Wall Street, because I believe that that is much of the cause of what happened. We passed in the House the Credit Card Reform Act and the Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. These bills give consumers and businesses peace of mind and ensure that your hard-earned dollars are treated fairly by credit card companies and Wall Street banks. The Senate should be taking up these pieces of legislation early in the year. Now, the banks and the credit unions we have here in the Erie community are not the banks I'm talking about, and they deserve our respect, and sometimes they've been dumped into the same pot as all banks being bad or greedy. But I think what we need to remember is there were players in this, particularly players outside of our region, who doled out loans to people they knew couldn't afford that loans, and then they betted on the fact that these people were going to fail on those loans. Our families and our businesses deserve better, and we're pushing tough new laws to protect you and to protect our families. Our region is on the path to recovery, I believe, and it's not by mere chance or luck. We are weathering the worst recession since the Great Depression. We are weathering a storm because we enacted a plan and because we are learning from the mistakes of the previous decade. Because we are not afraid to tackle these tough issues, and we are brave enough to take on the status quo.